Hi, today we're in Washington and it's super rainy right now, so we're recording inside the RV. Welcome to CHeri Knits. I love knitting and I want you to love it too. Today we're going to talk about jogless stripes, how to do stripes in the round without getting that little stair step that you get when you switch colors. Let's get started. Let's take a look at how to knit stripes when you're working in the round that don't have that jog, that step up from one round to the next. So when you're knitting in the round, you are knitting a spiral. When you are knitting flat and you have stripes, you'll see they're just nice straight stripes. But when you're knitting in the round, your first stitch of the round and your last stitch of the round are not on the same level because you've knit around and then you've jumped up and then you knit around and jump up. So when you do something like color work or stripes, you get this sort of a jog that happens in between, and you know that's your beginning of the round because you see that area right now with the jogs. Now that doesn't bother me. I just know that's a part of knitting in the round. It's knitting a spiral and that just happens. And so personally, I just go with it. I don't really worry about it. Often, like for a hat or something or a cowl, this can just be the back and I just make sure it goes to the back and I don't really worry about it too much. But some people, it really annoys them. And if you don't want to have this jog, there are several things that you can do to avoid the jog. I've tried a bunch of them, and the only one I've ever been able to do consistently with success is what I'm going to show you today. So here we see the rounds that were done without the technique, and you get this little stair step up with the color, and they don't quite line up. And then if we look up here, this is where I changed after this big chunk of color and I started doing the technique for jogless stripes. And you can see that it actually gives you a more consistent stripe and you don't have that jog up. But if you look closely, you'll see that this is the beginning, this is the end. The very first stitch that you do, the rows there, the columns there, you're going to have one less stitch in those columns for the beginning of the round than you do everything else. So this is a 3-stitch stripe, 3-row stripe. And so there's 1, 2, 3. But here on this first row, there's only 1, 2, and here for the blue, 1, 2. Because what we're going to do is skip the first stitch on the second row, or not skip it, but slip it, slip the first stitch on the second row. So when it's time now for me to switch, I'm at the beginning of the row and I want to go back to blue. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my new yarn that I want to work with. I'm carrying the yarns up on the inside. And if you want to see a video on how to carry your yarns up when you're working in the round on stripes, you can click in the description below and you will find that video. But what we're going to do now is just do a regular round. So for the very first round, you don't want to do anything special. You want to knit every single stitch of that round. All right, so I'm coming to the end of the round and I want to knit that final stitch of the round. And for the first stitch of the round, for the second row, what I want to do is just slip it straight across. So I'm going to slip it purlwise just to move it over, and then I would continue knitting around. And so what that does is it actually, that slip stitch, it's going to do two things. It's going to help this stripe below lift up a little bit, and then it's going to help the blue pull down. So that's why we just have the 2 stitches here. So it helps condense that row and pull it down so that it lines up better on the top of that row, and also pull it up a little bit so it lines up better down here. And so that's how you get a jogless stripe, by slipping the first stitch of the second row and then continuing on. And if your stripes are larger, you don't ever have to slip a stitch again. It's just that one time on the first stitch of the second round of color. So keep in mind, you have to have at least 2 rounds of color for this technique to work. If you were just doing single stripes, one color per round, you can still run the yarn up and keep going, but you're definitely going to have those jogs. You won't be able to use this technique with that. But I think it looks good. You'll look closely and you can determine, because you're a knitting sleuth, you're the boss of your knitting, and you would see that you actually have a different number of stitches, but to the eye looking on at your lovely knitting from a distance, they're just going to see these nice chunks of stripe, and it's going to trick them. So give this a try. Let me know what you think. I hope it was helpful. We'll see you next time. I hope that was helpful and that you want to give this technique a try. If you need a pattern, click the link below and go to my Ravelry page and check out So Many Stripes. It's a circular project that's all stripes, and you can practice this technique. See you next time.